Greetings, welcome along. It is Inspire and Be Inspired. Regular motivational conversations, occasional life hacks. The last few topics of conversation have been very music orientated, but today we are most definitely going to be talking to an extremely inspirational gentleman. Mr. Ben Smoldon is somebody that I've known for over 40 years, and one day at the age of 17 years of age, his life changed forever. We are going to have a conversation with Ben very shortly. I will bring him onto the stream. Let me just say, if this is the first time that you're joining me, I do love to make this as interactive as possible, so please do feel free to leave any comments, ask any questions, and whenever there is a break in the conversation, I will address my attention to any of your words. Without further ado, let me say good afternoon and welcome along to Mr. Ben Smoldon. How are you, sir? Are you okay? Let me make sure I can hear you fine.
Yeah, I'm all right. Thanks, Andy. How's you?
Good. I'm very good. I say it every week. It's always a tentative start because I like to make sure that all the technical details are working, but it looks like we're rocking and rolling. Your lighting is perfect. I can hear you loud and clear. I can see already we have people jumping into the chat to say good evening, so thank you, Jimmy. Thank you for letting me know that all is cool. And any of Ben's friends who are passing through as well, feel free to say hi and we'll welcome you along whenever we can. So I guess we should put some context onto this conversation, Ben, first and foremost, because you may be wondering, well, why does the DJ want to talk to me? You know, this is a bit weird, but we go back a long way, right? Way before I was a DJ, when life was a much simpler everyday thing. So let's paint a picture. Let's talk about life in the early 80s. Tell me about Ben Smoldon and life as you remember growing up in the leafy royal Sutton Coldfield.
Yeah, well, growing up, mate, from my point of view, it was brilliant. Fun, a lot of fun, a lot of friends, a lot of laughter, a lot of warmth in our house. As you know, I hope you can remember anyway. Just our parents were very liberal, but gave us boundaries, which was good. Had to go to church every week, Sunday, but then we had to go to the real church, which was Sutton Coldfield Rugby Club, and we had to go there and well, we played rugby weekly, but we'd always turn up to church just across the road. The church being just across the road, as you know, service started at 10 o'clock. We were late. We would always be there, probably about 10 past late. Always late, but it was great. It was, and we also, my parents were always very welcoming of our friends. So you and many other boys who were at Aston, all my friends from all the schools that we went to, and same with Rowley as well. It was just great fun, mate. And
So let me just reconfirm. You are 4 years younger than myself. I went to school with the older of the three brothers, Simon, a gentleman who I love dearly, and we've reconnected in recent years after our paths having not crossed for a very long time. And for myself, growing up in the early 80s, living in Erdington and going to school in Aston at King Edward's Grammar, I got to meet your brother. We became very good friends. To me, you were from a very well-to-do family, good stock, an incredible house that you had, 3 stories, I think it was, on the Boldmere Road. And it would be an open house, as you say. We would have occasional parties at your house when your mum and dad were out, and then infamous Sunday mornings waking up to the incredible bacon sandwiches that your mum would prepare, and there would always be a little plate of biscuits or scones or the world famous meringues that we all look forward to. And we'd all be in the church, as you say. We'd get up, be dragged to church on a Sunday with the most stinking of headaches, but we were made to sit there, and then we'd come back again for Sunday lunch. So absolutely incredible times, such fun memories that I have growing up in that household, a household that was always full of smiles, love, and laughter, right?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. It was, as you say, a place where it was an open house. If you didn't have if a bed for the night, or you're just dropping, walking past or whatever, then you're always welcome to pop in for a cup of tea. And that's how life should be. And from my point of view, it's just great because, as you know, Andy, life is about people, life is about memories, and for us, that's what those were the important things for us.
Hmm.
And to be welcoming to people. Doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what your background you're from, just you're always welcome for a cup of tea,
Hmm.
chat,
And
even a bed.
sorry, carry on.
No, and a bed for the night if if you couldn't get home, the late bus home after the pub or whatever it may be, you could always crash ours.
Hmm. And your dad was a machine, an avid sportsman. Now, we haven't spoke about this in the couple of times before we went on air, but your dad actually used to be the headmaster at my aunt's school in Hodge Hill. So I didn't actually realise that. So being a headmaster for a long time, I was aware of him through my aunt. I don't even know, it came up in conversation one time, and I think he'd not long since left Hodge Hill, and then he moved on to other schools. So I want to say hi to Emily and to Julie, who are watching as well. Thank you for passing through and commenting. The love for rugby, how did that begin?
Well, that's began through my dad. Well, my dad, he was first of all, my parents weren't from Birmingham. They weren't from Sutton Coldfield. They my mum was from Portsmouth. My dad was from North Devon, from a place called Barnstaple, which I'm sure a lot of people know from holidays. And he moved up to Birmingham to train to be a teacher. And he played rugby at school. And when he moved into the area after training to be a teacher in Saltley, my mum and dad moved into Sutton Coldfield, where he got his first job at a school called Royal and Bedford, which is now Plansbrook School. And he joined the local rugby club because that was his love. And he then got involved on the committee, as he does, because for him it's about not just playing, it's about contributing as well, making the club better, being part of the community. And for him, that's what he wanted to do. If he's going to live there and make a life there, he wanted to be part of the community. And obviously then we came along, mini rugby started. We were all down there on a Saturday. Roger would play. Marg would be in the kitchen making teas, and telling us off. But it was all good. It was great. So that's how it all started. And it's still a great game. Love the game. Watch the game. Kids play the game.
Yeah, it is your life. It is. It does definitely run through the blood. And a lot of my school friends, we had a very good rugby team at school, but then they would go on to also play for Sutton as well. I won't reel off all the names. I'm sure you remember them all, just more than I will, because you would have spent a lot more time with them. So then you were a rising rugby star, doing very well. You became captain of the team for Sutton. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was captain of the club team in the 16s, 17s, and Colts. Captained Greater Birmingham at 16, and then because Greater Birmingham was the start of the county system, and then I went on the Midlands training weekend at a really big private school called Denstone College. And I did a training weekend for the Midlands about 5 months before my injury.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so big prospects for you.
Well, I wanted to do as well as I could because Simon had gone before me, Roland had gone before me, and played for the county. Simon had done really well, played for the Midlands, had an England trial, Played in the same Midlands team as Martin Johnson, who obviously went on to captain England in the Rugby World Cup in 2003. And he played with many other rugby internationals. Richard Cockrell, who played with and against, who is now one of the England forwards coaches. And Rowley, he played for the North Mids, and he did really well as well. So for me, it was just a case of following in their footsteps, wanting to do as well as you possibly could.
Okay, so when you say about the game that changed everything for you, you were talking about the rules in the game where they were starting to bring in different rules for safety reasons. Do you want to paint us a picture of what the game of rugby was like around that time and why those rules are necessary?
Well, I can only talk about the age group that I was in at the time, which was Colts, which is under 19 rugby. Okay, so that's obviously you're coming towards the the end of your youth career, so to speak. And in 1991, that was the year I had my injury. The Rugby Football Union, who are the governing body for English rugby, brought in a rule for the scrimmage in particular, and I played front row of the scrimmage, so I played hooker. And for anybody who knows or doesn't know, hooker is the front row of the scrum. The scrum is a way of restarting the game in a match, and it usually takes absolutely ages at the moment with setting the scrimmage right. Is what so that it's all safely coordinated to prevent injuries. But at the time, the RFU obviously saw in that scrimmages were very disjointed, bit of a mess, could lead to injury because the two front rows would pretty much charge at each other. So they brought in this rule as a trial rule, or law, as my dad would say to me, called crouch, touch, pause, engage, where the front rows, where I was in, the two props of the front rows would crouch. We would all crouch. We would touch arms, and then we would gently engage. Okay, and the referee had to apply this law. Unfortunately, the referee did not apply this law because in the match there were between 20 and 25 collapsed scrimmages, and the whole point of bringing it in was to prevent collapsed scrimmages.
Now, I don't like to do a lot of research when I'm having these conversations. I like to make them as natural as possible, but I couldn't help when just looking up some of the finer points. I did come across an article that said that the referee had some problems trying to keep a lid on the game, so to speak, and there was dialogue between himself and the linesman about how messy the game was. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. It was a very heated, testosterone-fueled under-19 game. You had two sets of teenagers, Saturday afternoon in October, and there were skirmishes going off on different parts, in different parts of the pitch during the match. The referee found it difficult to control. A player got sent off from each team. One of the supporters did actually make a comment to the ref, asking him to sort out the scrimmages. I actually originally started off playing on the wing because we had two hookers that day. Okay, and the reason why I started playing on the wing was because we had 14 men originally, and I was not supposed to be playing because I had a county trial, my final county trial on the Monday. I didn't want to play because I wanted to make sure that I was injury free, and able to compete in the trial. But Friday night, Saturday morning, we still only had 14 players, and this was without me. And I said to my dad, what should I do? He says, well, you're gonna have to play. So I went, Okay, so I did. I played. We had two players there was myself and another guy from Aston University who were hookers, and I just thought, well, I'll just go play on the wing. Okay, so I was out of the way, wasn't going to get involved in too much, but 20 minutes into the game, the chap who was playing at hooker was complaining of his neck hurting, and he asked if he could swap. By this point, I'd been humiliated on the wing because I'd probably had about as much pace as as the average snail. But so I was like, great, no problems at all. And obviously, that was my comfortable position. You just think you could crack on with it, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, as the game went on, and the referee lost the control of the game. Sadly, scrimmages collapsed. We were getting players were getting more and more frustrated, feisty, and just punchy with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Then sadly, obviously, the scrimmage happened 10 minutes before the end of the game, where two front rows went down quite fiercely together. And just next thing I knew, my world had changed.
Mm-hmm. So were you, I don't want to go too deep into it, but do you recall if there was a lot of pain at the time or not really?
No, yeah, I can remember everything, mate. It was one of those where we went down, and I, I, I felt winded immediately as impact as we went down to get, and there was some impact. I thought somebody had punched me in the stomach.
Right.
And then I must have blacked out for a small period of time, as in we're talking a split second. And I had my arm around my prop, and he said to me, "Are you all right?" And I said, "I can't feel my legs." And I just remember it was almost like, in my mind at the time, it's slow motion, but I'm sure it was probably a lot quicker than how it happened. And I just gently slipped off him and just collapsed to the ground because I'd lost at this point all movement from below, from the nipples down. My arms were spasming. My mate Boo, who was a scrum half, he took my gum shield out, and I didn't know what happened. Didn't know what happened at all, and I just lay there, and I had people looking at me, and it was at that point that's one of our, I think the same guy who commented to the referee, he had one of the very first mobile phones, so he's got his brick out, fortunately, and he phones for the ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really pleased that they just left me, didn't move me, and just made sure I was comfortable. Pretty crazy.
Wow, just sitting listening to it. And so I'm sure as years have progressed, it's easier for you to discuss it. I know in hindsight, there was some pretty dark times that followed off of the back of that, right?
Yeah, it was pretty brutal, mate, because it's not just me that's affected. It's everyone else. It's Mark and Rog.
Mm-hmm.
Simon, Rowley, my cousins, my mates from school, my mates from college, all my friends, the people that were there playing, they've had to witness that.
Mm-hmm.
And start to think and crazy things they can think as well. Then there's, Simon's friends like you, Robbie's friends. Yeah, it's just there's a wider picture to it than just me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I always find, and I do get quite emotional about it's not because it's me, it's because like Roger Mark, the fact that Roger had to take that phone call, And for him, Simon was in Paris, I remember at the time, watching England play France in the Rugby World Cup quarter final, which they won. And for him to come back to that, because he wouldn't have known until he got back to Birmingham on Sunday morning, having probably got very drunk in Paris. So
wow,
yeah,
crazy. Well, hi, Mr. B. Thank you for your question. I know we are going to answer that a little later on. So bear with me if I don't come to that immediately. So what was the next time scale for you? Obviously, being in hospital, how long was it before they were able to conclusively say what the actual damage was, and then you would be aware of what that meant for you for the rest of your life, really?
well, I immediately got once the ambulance got to the pitch, and we were on some municipal pitches in Burton-on-Trent. So they had to they couldn't get the ambulance onto the pitch. They had to get a stretcher, and had to get stretchered and taken over a bridge.
Right.
And obviously at the time I was thinking, hopefully I'm all right for next week. That's all I was thinking. Because that's my nature, to be, optimism. Went to Burton-upon-Trent Hospital. They realised it was something which was pretty much out of their remit, so to speak, as a general hospital. And I got transferred transferred to the Midland Spinal Injuries Unit, which was at Oswestry, far north of Shropshire. Had to have a police escort, and the ambulance had to travel at 30 mile an hour all the way down B roads from Burton-upon-Trent. Took absolutely ages. Still kind of, thinking everything was going to be all rosy, so to speak, chatting to the anaesthetist on the way as I do. And then we got there, had x-rays, which were probably some of the most painful things in my life. Absolutely. Really, yeah, because they had to obviously maneuver me into position to get the best image of what's happened, and to find out what the problem was. And so they did all these all the x-rays, and they knew straight away what the problem was.
So what was the actual diagnosis? Something had severed somewhere, snapped?
Well, prior to that, they were doing all the pinprick tests on my legs. Can you feel that? Can you feel this? And obviously, in my head, I'm willing myself to actually feel it. Which I think is a natural human reaction. And they told me that I broke my neck and severed my spinal cord. And I said, will I walk again? And immediately the registrar, I remember she was quite brutal. Actually, she just said no.
Right.
I was like, boom, wow. I was like, what? To me, no doesn't exist. And I said, not at all. She said 2%, and that was like, wow. And at that point, they had to then make sure my spine remained stable and aligned before I had surgery, which happened a month later, and just to settle me. So I had to have a halo put over my head, weights attached under the bed to make sure I stayed still for the remaining month. So lying in bed for a month, basically, on a turning table.
So because it was so long ago, maybe this is a daft question, but if that injury was to have happened many years later, would there have been any different kind of a treatment that could have possibly seen a different outcome?
Yeah, nowadays they treat there and then, so then I think they can inject something. I think some fluid into the site to to slow down the swelling, because
Okay.
there was a massive amount of swelling. Because what had happened to me is my vertebrae C5-6 had been completely shattered, and my spinal cord had been crushed, as in severely crushed, and crushed. They say it's well, yeah, crushed. So there's a severing there as well,
Hmm.
and as a result of that, I'm paralyzed from the just above the nipple line down. I've got no voluntary use of my bladder or my bowels. I have limited use of my arms and no use of my legs, and I've got 30% reduced lung capacity.
Okay, lung capacity.
Yeah, yeah, because my diaphragm was affected, so that's why I would have felt as
Mm-hmm.
though I was winded.
Okay, yeah.
So sorry, going back in answer to your question, yes, probably if it was today, I wouldn't be lying in a bed afterwards for a month. They try and get you up as soon as possible and get your neck stable as soon as possible.
Okay, so I would like to ask then about your personal life at the time, because not in as your story has progressed, we know I know of your personal life. Tell us, at the time you were with a young lady.
No, no, I wasn't. We, go about a month beforehand, as teenagers do. You know, we'd stop seeing each other, but still, but we'll still see each other out in the pubs of Sutton Coldfield, because I worked in one of them. I worked in a pub called the Station,
Hmm.
which was the rugby club pub owned by a guy called Nick Oliver. Um, and she was a friend of many of the guys who were in the in the rugby team anyway. So
Okay,
so now
I didn't realise that you were actually no longer together. So how long was it then before you guys hooked back up, so to speak?
well, she was part of the support group for me when I had my injury. So I was very lucky. I had a huge amount of support from from obviously my family, the rugby community, my friends, church. Going back to my primary school, it was just incredible. I was so lucky. So she was part of that friendship group that
Hmm.
would come every week, up to once, maybe twice a week, um, to Oswestry.
Hmm.
Um, so when I'd just gone through a crazy time. Well, I was going through a crazy time, as were all my friends, because none of us had experienced anything like that in our lives at all.
Hmm.
Um,
Very, very traumatic, without a shadow of a doubt. And as you say, some people dealt with it better than others. And you, I think you were probably one of the stronger out of most of the people around you. I think you'd agree, right? Even though you did have some dark times yourself.
yeah, and from my point of view, I did have dark times, and it's only human to do that. And I, because it's change, it's something which is alien, and trying to get your head around that at such an age. All I want to do at 17, Andy, as you would know, you want to have fun,
Hmm.
you want to go out with your friends, and you want to drink. Pretty much, that's it, isn't it?
Hmm.
And obviously, you have to do your college work or school work, whatever it may be, and you just want to have a great time with mates. That's what living is like at that age, and that was all changed. Didn't know what the future was going to be. Yeah, I had no one. There was no yardstick to gauge it by.
Hmm.
So dark thoughts, they're going to happen, and they should happen, because it's all part of the grieving process. It is losing something at the end of the day. I
Hmm.
lost a lot, so
Most
it's all
definitely.
grieving.
Most
Yeah.
definitely. Very, very wise words there. So, what was the natural again, I keep saying about the timeline when eventually life has to start back on to a path of everyday existence. What was set out for you? Was it about having to go home and change the family home, or were you going to be positioned in care, for want of a better word, for a while?
No, I was going to be in Oswestry for 6 months, and past that will be the healing process. To have my neck, with the vertebra secured, and for the swelling to go down, and then to start to learn how to live life as a spinal injured person and a wheelchair user. To know all the pitfalls of being spinally injured as well. So pressure sores, knowing all about pressure sores, knowing all about bowel management, bladder management, nutrition, physio. You are a child, not even a child, a baby again. You have to learn how to live your life a different way. So that was the whole part of so I was there for 6 months, part of a rehabilitation process. Pretty crazy, but it is just like being born, but with a maturer mind.
Well, I was going to say the mature mind. At some points, the resilience must have come through, and you must have been like, right, this isn't beating me, right? This is, I'm attacking this and making sure that I'm going to give it my best shot possible.
That's true, mate. Because as I'll go back to it, and I'll say every time the support I had was just phenomenal. Really was, and I'm still very grateful. Well, I'll always be grateful for it, because Marg and Marg came to visit me every single day
in Oswestry.
Yeah. Now this was driving from Sutton Coldfield after doing a day's work, so she'd work in a PRU, which is a pupil referral unit, as a teacher, and then at the end of the day, take some of my friends up to Oswestry, and then come back. And Rog would be coming up for the first couple of weeks whilst everything was happening. But yeah, they were incredible. Rog came up to me, and typical Rog came up to me and said, "Right, I've got everything sorted for you, Benjamin." Well, all right, Dad. Yeah. What's that then, mate? He says, "Right, you're going back to college. I've been to speak to the college, and you're going back, and they look forward to you next year, coming next year, and you're going to be managing the Colts team. So this team that I've just broken my neck playing for, he's now got me back involved. So obviously, just I just like, all right, Dad, yeah, no problems, yeah, great." So he'd sown the seed, and he said, "You're still going to do everything." Still going to do everything you wanted to, which was go to a degree, and just crazy. So him and Mark, and therefore the support behind us as well, were just gave me that inspiration.
Well, I did say this was an inspirational story. Incredible parents, listening to the stories as you're talking about them both. Let me just say, I have Susan Harrison who comments and says, "You are inspirational, Ben. All good wishes from your old business studies teacher."
Hello, Sue. I remember Sue. She was great, and lived in. I think she lived in Sutton herself, and was really supportive to me. Really supportive, as was everyone else.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Well, I'll say again, people watching the recording, please do leave some comments, leave some messages for Ben, because he will get to read these as the days progress. So my good friend, Mr. B, he says, "I know nothing about rugby, but could you tell me if you were classed as amateur, pro, semi-pro, and would there be more control over scrums in the more professional level?" Now, we've kind of already answered that, because it was a turning point in the game, especially for the the team, the under-19s that Ben was playing for in the Colts. But I guess this will bring us on. You can answer that question, but it'll also then bring us on to at what point did the discussion come about bringing charges against the referee?
Well, first of all, in answer to Mr. B's question, the game in 1991 was an amateur game. Rugby was completely amateur at that point in time. So the Will Carling era, that was amateur rugby. Rugby became professional in 1995. So at that point in time, everything was amateur. You did it for the love of the game.
Mm-hmm. 90, did you get the years right then? 91, 95? That's correct.
Yeah, 91 is when I had my injury.
Okay.
95 at the end of the Rugby World Cup in 1995. That's when it went professional.
Sorry, you know what it is? I'm getting sevens and ones mixed up in my head. I'm thinking that, yeah, so you were 17 in 91, of course. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go on then to I guess moving on to the point about the conversation that came up about legal proceedings.
Well, what my dad, he wanted to know what had happened and how it happened, because he found it so he couldn't get his head around the fact that what happened and how it could have happened. Because at the end of the day, he knew I played rugby for 12 years up until that point. It started when I was 5. I'd played front row all my life, and he thought that something didn't seem right, and he got the team together within, I'm not too sure what the timeline was, but he spoke to the team as a group. First of all, to let them know what the situation was, and secondly, he discovered at that point, when he heard all these different stories, that something wasn't right, and it was from there that he started to build a case, because there was a lady called Diane Benusi. And I hope she doesn't mind me mentioning her name, who contacted my dad and said, "You need to do something about this, because this is, something's happened here that shouldn't have happened. This is the man to speak to." And she gave him the name of a guy called Terry Lee, who was from a law firm down in London.
Okay.
Called Evelyn Coleman, and Roger phoned him, and then spoke to him, and it all transpired from there.
So how long, if we just kind of skip over it, how long did the whole process take from the initial deciding to take proceedings to the court case and a verdict being met, more or less?
From that point, when Rog made the phone call, the court case, it was in 1996.
Okay.
It started, I think, about the 26th of March 1996, and the verdict was on the 19th of April in court number 1 of the Old Bailey, very famous courtroom. So pretty bonkers being in there when you think like the Craze and Peter Sutcliffe and all those kind of people. There's little old me from 263 Boldmere Road.
I don't know, mate. You've rubbed shoulders with one or two notorious people in your time in that station pub. Let's not play it down now. Let's not play it.
So yeah, and it's just kind of crazy. But then they did appeal the case. The opposition did, and the appeal was unsuccessful on their behalf, and they then tried to take it to the European Court or the High Court. Anyway, they tried to take it further to get the decision overturned, but then it all was pretty much closed as a case, and the decision stood by probably about 98.
Okay. And
Okay, and then
the final passing of judgment was negligence,
it was
gross
like,
gross negligence.
yeah, not officiating the game.
Hmm. Okay. And just the referee, or was that another player that you were playing against? Did he have any repercussions as well? Again, forgive my question, and it was just that I happened to see something online that the referee and another player was being charged, but that was just what I read. I don't know how correct that was.
It was it was against the prop, and it was the referee. The case against the prop was thrown out of court,
Okay.
but I was successful against the referee.
Okay. So in you were awarded damages, of course, that would enable you to give you a more comfortable life. But until that happened, how were you able to? Because things that at the works had to be done at home. The whole house had to be changed. A house had to be moved. Right. So we probably skipped ahead of ourselves by talking about the case. Let's go back and talk about how life adapted for you.
Well, because as you remember, our house, and as you said earlier, it's a 3-story house, a narrow, semi-detached Victorian house, and on the Bolway Road. But unfortunately, to actually have a wheelchair in there, it just wouldn't exist. It wouldn't have been possible. Well, it would have been possible because most things are possible, but we would have had to completely reconfigure the whole house and put an extension on the side, which is what we looked at first, which could have been a separate area for me and a bedroom for a carer. But instead, Rog found a house on Station Road, which was literally just around the corner. Massive 7-bedroomed house that had relatively easy access. I could have a through floor lift, and with it being 7 bedrooms, there could have been a bedroom for me, a living room for me, so a separate living area, so to speak. And Margaret Rog would have the rest of the house. There'll be a room for Simon Rowley, Margaret Roger's study, and we had a massive garden as well. So it felt it was better to actually just to move to a house and adapt that. Mm-hmm. So that's exactly what happened, and it was probably the best thing to do rather than actually reconfigure a house and then try to sell that on is not that easy as well.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so tell me, I guess the easiest thing is for you to then tell me how life progressed. And I say it a lot when I speak to people, maybe a pivotal moment that you feel that, things were changing for you, and, when your partner came along, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the September after the injury, I went back to finish up my college course, which was a BTEC National, and that was at the CTC in Kingshurst, and taught by the likes of Sue and many other fantastic teachers who were really supportive of me. The whole college was absolutely brilliant. They did a walk for me from John O'Groats to Land's End to raise money. It just nuts. And so I finished off my college course, and I wanted to do a degree, and ideally I would have wanted to go away to university. Sadly, I don't think I was ready for that, so I went and did a course, a leisure management degree at the Birmingham College of Food, Travel and Tourism, which is now called the University College of Birmingham. I prefer to call it the College of Cakes, as it was at the time.
I love it.
So it was great, absolutely brilliant. And I did that with a couple of my mates who come from the rugby club, and Simon did it as well. And so and there was some people off the course that are off my BTEC course as well. So I did a degree.
Mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
did that.
Now, because I'm so used to talking to my friends, talking about music, talking about their life in the music industry, covering 30, 40 years, I'm quite happy to sit here and talk for hours on end, but I'm quite conscious that we're not going to do that with you this evening. But I want to try and get to the truly breathtaking aspects of your story, the truly inspirational moments that you found deep in you to just keep having that drive, having that determination, and how some of the major moments happened for you. For example, in 2012, how did that come about?
Well, I suppose from getting to doing a degree, getting a 2-1, I was quite lucky to get a 2-1. I had a lot of support, with that from the college and many of my friends. Thank you, Jude. And so from there, I basically Roger always said you can still have a life. That was his big thing. You can still have a life. So and by this point, he'd had a massive stroke.
Mm-hmm.
By 1996, by the time I had my degree, by being successful in my court case, the support of people all the way through, and my friends, I just kept on doing the things that I was doing beforehand. A little bit more difficulty, but I kept on doing them. And I was never made to feel by any of my friends, any of my family, that was any different. Same bloke, just in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it is. Okay, we'll find a way. And that was always Roger's thing. He was a solutions man. And it's that attitude just made me the same.
Mm-hmm. Simon did. We were having a chuckle a while back on the conversation, and he was saying about in the house that you were in, and that there'd be like races, or he was painting like a jovial picture about races for the lift, about you getting upstairs after he had his stroke and whatever.
Yeah. Rog he'd come through. I might be in bed, and he'd come up, and obviously, and say have some profound words as always as he'd come through. So it was just brilliant. His attitude, his mentality, his love for me, and the support of people behind you is what has drives me, has driven me, drives me now. And the fact that I'm not immune. No one's immune to have something happen to them. So why should I be? Why should it be different to me? But all right for that bloke down the road.
Mm-hmm.
It can happen to any of us at any point in time. It's how we deal with it, how we react to it, and I was just one of those guys it happened to. But I'll be very lucky with other things though.
Mm-hmm. Well, you say that. How did what happened to you and the judgment, it changed the game of rugby, right? It had major repercussions.
It did. It's made the game safer. The scrimmage is now better controlled, both on the amateur level and professional level. So injuries at scrum time have been reduced massively. For me, that's a great thing. I don't want to see anybody in the same situation as me, especially from a game that I love. And it has made the game safer, and which is a positive as far as I'm concerned. So good has come out of it, which always will happen.
Right. And so you work with a lot of different organisations. You're involved still, you say, on the rugby board and with the board of the school. We got to mention the IPF, that you work very closely with them, and they helped you out immensely, right?
Yeah, the Rugby Football Union's Injured Players Foundation, they support players who've had catastrophic injuries, life-changing injuries. and they support me with a vehicle. They've supported with a kitchen that's been fitted at the moment, equipment, any capital project which is going to help my life. I'm going skiing with them as well in a month's time. So, I have been skiing 3 times since my injury, which is great. Not just through the Injured Players Foundation, but also another spinal injuries charity called Backup, who are brilliant as well. So they need to have a mention as well. Very important.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm involved as a peer support for the Rugby Union Injured Players Foundation. So anybody who has a similar injury to myself that they want me to go along and speak to and tell them about the organisation, how it can support them and their family, and I will do that. Also, I'm a peer mentor for Backup, the spinal injuries charity. Again, working with people who had an injury similar to mine, and just obviously working with them and answering and guiding them of how maybe I've done things and how it may help them. And also I'm a governor at it's now called King Edward's Handsworth Grammar School. It was Handsworth Grammar School when I was there, so I'm a governor there as well, as the vice chair of the governing body, which I always think is quite funny, really, being a chair user, being vice chair. So
I love the sense of humour. So a couple of other things that I'm going to talk about ever so briefly. I mentioned about 2012. Yes, let's talk about the small matter of you being nominated and eventually being the Olympic torchbearer in Birmingham. I think that's like a huge thing, right?
It was massive. It's thanks to Jeff Fletcher, chairman of Sutton Coldfield Rugby Club, but who is also a lifelong friend of ours. At the time I was the chair of playing at Sutton Rugby Club, so I would run teams from the Colts through to selection for the seconds and third team, organising players week in, week out, doing the raffle on a Saturday, maybe getting all people organised to do the gate, get my mum organised to do the kitchen and feed players as well, and just trying to make it tick on a Saturday, but also stuff in the background, such as picking teams, speaking to players, and organising equipment and helping out, basically just doing my bit, being part of the committee. So I did that, I suppose, on and off with Sutton Coldfield for in total about 12 years or so, 16 years, 12 to 16 years, I'd say. And I loved it. It's great. It's my way of giving back. People have given me so much help, so much fun, and enabled me to do these things. So it's my turn to help out. So Jeff, he nominated me because of this to be an Olympic torchbearer. First of all, thought brilliant, that's great. And then obviously it went through. I got through past the next stage, and then I'd be picked, and it was just brilliant. Brilliant. I just wish my dad had been there.
Well, I was going to say, unfortunately, Roger is no longer with us. But again, something that I was literally blown away. I'll say it. I got quite emotional to realise, because I've never been a rugby person. I don't really pay a lot of attention. But to see that the actual ground at Sutton had actually been named in his honour, it's just like, I can't even. Well, just to me, who's not even into rugby, to be so blown away by it, it must mean the world to you guys, right?
It is. It does mean the world to us, because for all the hard work, and he didn't do what he did in rugby and in the community to be rewarded like that. He did it because he loved the game of rugby. He wanted to spread it to as many people from as many backgrounds as possible, and he wanted to be a place for the community where people could come to enjoy themselves and have a group of friends. And he developed an absolute, with the help of lots of people behind him, he developed a great club, and it still is a great club. And I think to have it named after him is a huge honour for him, and he was delighted when it happened.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful, fantastic. And Margaret is still with us, of course.
Yeah, Mark's still going, still making rangs, still baking for the church, and still as opinionated as ever.
Well, Simon, you're my school friend, your oldest brother, overseas. He's promised me that this summer he's going to make it back to the UK, and we're going to do our very best to try and make it to Sutton, to say hi. Now, finally, I guess, without digging too deep, because I know you do like to keep your private life fairly private. There is a family life as well now, right? Tell us very briefly about that.
Yeah, I have a family. I've been married for nearly 18 years, and we've got twin boys who are 13.
Mm-hmm. And people are going to say, "Hold on, how does that work?"
Speak to Robert Winston. So Robert Winston,
fantastic, wonderful.
The magic of science, and and it's brilliant. It's great, and for me, it just goes to show that things can happen if you have enough belief, and you got the support behind you. There's possibilities, and I'm very fortunate. I am very fortunate like that. So yes, I do have a family life, and keeps me busy. I'm involved with the school parents association there, organising samosas for the rugby team. Which is brilliant. So I've ordered 50 samosas today for Wednesday.
Nice,
and it's wicked. I love being involved with what the boys do, sporting wise. When they play rugby, hockey, cricket, they do it all. And just trying to give them, what I had, and I was lucky to have growing up, and I think that's really important.
Indeed. Well, my friend, I just want to say thank you so much for giving me your time today. It really has been a pleasure, not only just reminiscing about our early days, but to, hear the story firsthand, to see how you deliver it with, such determination, and the enthusiasm that you've still got for life. It's definitely an inspirational story for anyone else who thinks they've got a hard life. If they want to know a hard life, then you show with a little bit of resilience and a support of those around you, anything's possible. Exactly like you've just said.
Okay, well, it's been a pleasure, Andy. Great to reconnect, as they say. So no, I appreciate today, and hopefully we'll see you again soon, mate.
Most definitely. I'll make it one of my first port of calls to come and check you out next time I'm over. I'm just going to press a button that will unceremoniously throw you off of Zoom, so I'll leave you to the rest of your evening. Thanks, my man.
No problems. Cheers, Andy. Take care.
Take care. Bye. And there goes Ben. Incredible. As you know, I could have sat and spoken to him for hours on end, but I wanted to just get the basis of the conversation down there. And if you're slightly interested to find out any more, there is a plethora of information online if you just Google him and his story. Thank you to everyone that has been watching that, and I'll say again, for the many people who do come back and are watching this recording, please do leave a comment. Please do leave a like. Let Ben know that you enjoyed that. Usually my conversations are based around the music industry, many years in that myself, and next week I'll be talking to a gentleman, aka Dr. Mix, aka Claudio Passavanti, aka Sunlight Square. Since I created this graphic saying that he has 648,000 subscribers. I think he's gone over 650,000 subscribers now. We are going to be focusing on how, if you want to try and reach people in this music industry, just a few little things that you can do to give yourself a better chance of more exposure. So thank you, Tony, for throwing a peace sign up there. I see you're watching. Emily, Julie, Jimmy, Pax, Susan as well. Thank you for your comments. I will leave you to the rest of your Monday evening, folks. Check out some of my other videos that will be coming up as soon as I jump off the stream now. Be good. Thanks a lot.